You know, there's a moment in life when you might look around and feel like the world has gotten a little quieter. Maybe the phone doesn't ring as often as it used to, or the invitations to gatherings have slowed down. It's a feeling many of us experience as we move into our 60s, 70s, and beyond. Life changes, doesn't it? Friends move away, family gets busy, and sometimes it's easy to feel like you're standing on your own island, watching the waves roll in. I've spoken to so many people who felt this way, and they've shared how that quiet can creep in so slowly, you barely notice it until it's all around you. But here's the thing, you're not alone in feeling this way, and more importantly, you don't have to stay on that path. Today we're going to talk about something that matters deeply. The 5 things that often happen right before seniors find themselves facing their final days alone. It's a heavy topic, I know, but I'm here with you, and we're going to walk through this together with care and hope. Because the truth is, recognizing these patterns can be the first step toward changing your path, toward building a life filled with connection, joy, and meaning, no matter your age. You've lived through so much, and your wisdom and experiences are a gift. Let's make sure the years ahead are as rich and fulfilling as they can be. So, what are these 5 things? They're habits, choices, or moments that can quietly lead to isolation if we don't pay attention. But don't worry, we're not just going to talk about what's hard. For every step that might pull you away from others, there's a step you can take to bring warmth and connection back into your life. We'll explore each one, and I'll share stories from real people who faced these moments and found their way back to a life filled with love and purpose. By the end of this video, you'll have practical ideas you can start using today, small steps that can make a big difference. Because it's never too late to rewrite your story, let's start with the first thing that often happens: withdrawing from social connections. You know how it goes. Maybe your knees aren't what they used to be, so you skip that weekly coffee with friends because the walk feels too long. Or perhaps you've lost someone dear to you, and it feels easier to stay home than to face the world without them. I met a woman named Margaret who's 72, and she told me how, after her husband passed, she stopped going to her book club. It wasn't the same, she said. I felt like I didn't belong anymore. Over time, she stopped answering calls, and her world got smaller. Margaret's story isn't uncommon. As we age, life throws challenges our way. Maybe it's harder to get around, or maybe we feel like we're imposing on others. But pulling away, even a little at a time, can create a gap that's hard to bridge later. Now, I know it's not always easy to stay connected. Some days it feels like you're carrying the weight of the world just to get out of bed. But here's what Margaret learned, and it's something you can try too. She started with one small step. She called a friend from her book club just to chat. It wasn't a big commitment, just a 10-minute call. That one call led to another, and soon she was back at the club laughing over stories again. The key? Start small. You don't have to plan a big outing or host a party. Maybe it's texting a neighbor to say hello or joining a local group for a short walk. I promise those little moments add up, and they remind you that you're still part of a community that values you. Let's move to the second thing that can happen: neglecting personal health. I don't mean this in a harsh way, because we all know how overwhelming it can be to keep up with doctor visits or exercise when you're feeling tired or low. But when we let our health slip, maybe skipping that annual checkup or ignoring a nagging pain, it can make it harder to stay engaged with life. I think of Tom, who's 68. He told me he used to love playing cards with his buddies, but when his energy started fading, he stopped going. He didn't realize it at the time, but he was dealing with untreated high blood pressure. Once he saw his doctor and got on the right medication, he felt like himself again. He was back at the card table, joking like old times, taking care of Your health doesn't have to feel like a chore. It's about giving yourself the energy to do the things you love. Maybe it's scheduling that overdue appointment or taking a gentle walk around the block. Even small changes like drinking more water or eating a piece of fruit each day can lift your spirits. And when you feel better, it's easier to say yes to that invitation or pick up the phone to call someone you care about. You deserve to feel your best, and those around you want to see you thriving. We've covered two big things so far, pulling away from connections and letting health slip. But there's more to this journey. Each step we're talking about is like a thread in a tapestry, and together they create the life you're living. You have the power to weave those threads in a way that brings you closer to others, closer to joy. I know it might feel daunting, but every small choice you make is a step toward a brighter path. Let's keep going, because there's so much more we can do to make sure your days are filled with warmth and meaning. You know, as we move through life, there are moments when we pause and wonder, what's it all for? Maybe you felt that way, sitting in a quiet house, thinking about the years behind you and what lies ahead. It's a question that can sneak up on us, especially as we get older, when the rhythm of life changes. The kids are grown, the career is behind you, and suddenly the days feel a little less full. That's where we're picking up today, continuing our conversation about the 5 things that can happen before seniors find themselves facing their final days alone. We're walking this path together, and I'm here to share stories and ideas that can help you fill your days with purpose and connection. One of the things that can quietly pull us away from others is losing that sense of purpose. You've spent decades building a life, raising families, working hard, solving problems. Your wisdom is like a library of experiences, rich with lessons. But when the structure of work or daily responsibilities fades, it's easy to feel like you're drifting. I met a man named Robert, who's 74, and he shared how retirement hit him harder than he expected. I used to wake up knowing exactly what I needed to do, he said, but after I retired, I felt like I was just filling time. Robert stopped going to his community center because he didn't feel he had anything to contribute anymore. That sense of aimlessness made it easier to stay home, to say no to invitations, to let the world move on without him. I know that feeling can be heavy. Some days it's hard to find the spark that gets you out of bed. But here's what Robert discovered, and it's something you can try too. He started volunteering at a local school, reading stories to kids a few hours a week. It wasn't a big commitment, but it gave him a reason to show up, to share his warmth and humor. Those kids lit up when he walked in, and he realized he still had so much to give. Finding purpose doesn't mean you have to change the world. It can be as simple as tending a small garden, writing letters to friends, or helping a neighbor with a task. Think about something you love. Maybe it's storytelling, cooking, or even organizing old photos. That one small thing can be a thread that pulls you back into the world, connecting you to others in ways that feel meaningful. And you know, it's not just about what you do, it's about how it makes you feel. When you have a reason to get up, you're more likely to call a friend, join a group, or smile at someone new. Purpose is like a light that shines outward, drawing others to you. I've seen it time and again. When seniors rediscover that spark, their world opens up. So take a moment today. Ask yourself, what's one thing I enjoy, something I could share with others? It doesn't have to be perfect or grand. It just has to be yours. You've got so much to offer, and the world is waiting for it. Now, let's talk about another thing that can happen, something that might surprise you, avoiding new technology. I know. Technology can feel like a foreign language sometimes. Smartphones, video calls, social media. It's a lot to take in, especially when you've lived most of your life without it. But when we shy away from these tools, we might miss out on connections that could brighten our days. I think of Susan, who's 69. She used to roll her eyes at her grandkids' obsession with their phones. "I'd rather talk face to face," she'd say. But when her daughter moved across the country, Susan felt the distance deeply. She missed seeing her grandkids grow up, and phone calls weren't enough. One day, her daughter suggested a video call. Susan was hesitant. She didn't want to deal with all those buttons, but her daughter walked her through it step by step, and soon Susan was seeing her grandkids' smiling faces on the screen. She watched them play, heard their stories, and even sang them a lullaby one night. "It's not the same as hugging them," she told me, "but it's the next best thing." That one small step, learning to use a simple app, brought her family closer, even from miles away. And you know what? Susan got curious. She joined an online group for seniors where she chats about gardening and shares tips. Technology became her bridge to the world. I'm not saying you need to become a tech expert overnight. That's not the goal. But even one small tool, like learning to send a text or join a video call, can open doors. You don't have to do it alone either. Ask a family member, a friend, or even a librarian to show you the ropes. Many libraries offer free classes for seniors, and they're so patient. Start with something simple, like sending a photo to a loved one or joining an online group for something you enjoy, like knitting or history. Those connections can make your world feel bigger, brighter, and less lonely. We're weaving a path together, aren't we? Each step we've talked about, staying connected, caring for your health, finding purpose, embracing technology, is like a piece of a puzzle. When you put them together, they create a life filled with warmth and meaning. I know it's not always easy, and there are days when it feels like the world is moving too fast. But you're not alone in this, and every small choice you make is a step toward a life surrounded by love and joy. There's more to explore. You know, there's something so special about sitting down with a cup of tea or coffee, just letting your thoughts wander. Maybe you're thinking about the people who've been part of your life, the ones who've made you laugh, the ones who've stood by you through thick and thin. But sometimes those thoughts turn to moments that still sting, words left unsaid, or misunderstandings that never quite got resolved. It's part of being human, isn't it? We carry these memories with us, and as we move through our 60s, 70s, and beyond, they can weigh heavier than we realize. That's where we're picking up today, continuing our heartfelt conversation about the 5 things that can happen before seniors find themselves facing their final days alone. I'm right here with you, and together we're finding ways to make sure your days are filled with connection and peace. One of the things that can quietly pull us away from others is holding on to unresolved conflicts. Life is long and over the years. We've all had moments where things didn't go as we hoped. Maybe it was a falling out with a sibling over something that feels silly now, or a friend who drifted away after a misunderstanding. I met a woman named Evelyn who's 71, and she shared a story that stayed with me. She hadn't spoken to her younger sister in over a decade. It started with an argument about their parents' care, and pride kept them both from reaching out. "I thought she should call me first," Evelyn said. But the longer it went, the harder it felt to pick up the phone. That silence built a wall, And Evelyn found herself pulling back from other relationships too, because carrying that hurt made it harder to open up. I know how heavy those unresolved moments can feel. It's like carrying a stone in your pocket. It's small at first, but over time, it wears you down. And when we hold on to these conflicts, it can make us hesitant to connect with others, to trust, or to let people in. But here's what Evelyn learned, and it's something you can try too. One day, she wrote her sister a simple letter. It wasn't long, just a few lines, saying she missed her and wanted to talk. She didn't know if her sister would respond, but sending that letter lifted a weight. To her surprise, her sister called. A week later, they cried, they laughed, and they started rebuilding what they'd lost. Evelyn told me, it wasn't about who was right. It was about choosing love over pride. Now, I'm not saying every situation will work out like Evelyn's, and I know some hurts run deep. But even a small step toward healing can make a difference. You don't have to solve everything at once. Maybe it's writing a note, making a call, or even just forgiving someone in your heart, even if they're no longer here. That act of letting go can free up space for new connections, for laughter, for joy. I've seen it time and again. When we release those old wounds, we make room for the people who matter most. Think about someone you've been missing. What's one small thing you could do to reach out? It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to come from you. And as we talk about opening our hearts, there's another thing that can slip away if we're not careful. Overlooking the small joys in life. You know those moments. The way the morning light filters through your window, the sound of a favorite song, or the smell of fresh bread baking. These are the little sparks that can light up a day, but when life feels heavy, it's easy to stop noticing them. I think of James, who's 66. After he lost his wife, he told me he stopped doing the things they used to love, like tending their small garden or listening to jazz on Sunday mornings. It didn't feel right without her, he said. Over time, he stopped going out, stopped inviting friends over, and his world got quieter. I know how grief or loneliness can dim the world's colors. Some days, it's hard to find anything worth smiling about. But James found a way back, and it started with something so small. One morning, he put on one of their old jazz records just to see how it felt. He sat there listening, and for the first time in months, he felt a flicker of warmth. That one moment led to another. He started tending the garden again, just a few minutes at a time. Soon he was sharing flowers with his neighbors, and those small interactions brought him back to life. James learned that joy doesn't have to be big. It can be as simple as savoring a warm drink, taking a short walk, or calling a friend to share a memory. Finding those small joys is like planting seeds. They don't bloom overnight, but with a little care, they grow into something beautiful. You don't need to overhaul your life or chase grand adventures. Maybe it's sitting outside for 10 minutes, feeling the breeze, or picking up a hobby you set aside years ago, like knitting or painting. These moments remind you that you're still here, still capable of feeling alive. And when you're filled with even a little bit of joy, it's easier to share it with others, to pick up the phone, to say yes to an invitation. You deserve those moments, and they're closer than you think. We're building something together, aren't we? Each step we're taking, reaching out, caring for ourselves, finding purpose, embracing new ways to connect, healing old wounds, and rediscovering joy is like a brushstroke on a canvas. You're painting a life that's vibrant and connected, no matter your age. I know it's not always easy, but you're not alone in this, and every choice you make is a step toward a brighter future. There's more to explore. and I'm so grateful you're here with me. Part 4. There's something so comforting about those quiet moments in the day, isn't there? Maybe you're sitting by a window, watching the world go by, or maybe you're flipping through an old photo album, smiling at memories that feel like they happened just yesterday. These little glimpses of joy are like treasures, and they're always there, waiting for us to notice them. We've been talking about the 5 things that can happen before seniors find themselves facing their final days alone. And today, we're diving deeper into how we can keep our hearts open to the beauty around us. I'm right here with you, and together, we're building a path toward a life filled with connection, meaning, and warmth. We started talking last time about how easy it is to overlook the small joys in life, especially when things feel heavy. Maybe you're dealing with aches and pains, or maybe the days just seem to blend together. I think of James, who I mentioned before, and how he rediscovered joy through something as simple as playing a favorite jazz record. But what struck me most about his story was how those small moments led to bigger ones. When he started gardening, again, he didn't just find peace in the flowers, he started sharing them with his neighbors. One day he invited a neighbor over for tea, and that led to regular chats. Then to joining a local gardening club. Those tiny sparks of joy didn't just lift his spirits, they brought people back into his life. I know it's not always easy to notice those moments, especially when life feels like it's weighing you down. Some days it's hard to see anything worth celebrating. But here's the thing. Joy doesn't have to be loud or dramatic. It's in the little things, like the taste of your favorite soup, the sound of birds outside, or even the satisfaction of finishing a crossword puzzle. I've spoken to so many seniors who've found that starting with one small joy can change everything. Maybe it's taking 5 minutes to listen to a song that makes you smile, or pulling out an old hobby, like sketching or baking. One woman I met, Clara, who's 70, told me she started knitting again after years of setting it aside. She made scarves for her grandkids, and those gifts turned into phone calls, visits, and stories shared over hot cocoa. What's one small thing that brings you a bit of happiness? It doesn't have to be big or complicated. Maybe it's sitting on your porch with a warm drink or calling a friend to share a funny memory. Those moments are like stepping stones, leading you back to a life that feels full and connected. And when you're filled with even a little bit of light, it's easier to share it with others, to say yes to an invitation, to smile at a neighbor, to feel like you're part of something bigger. You deserve to feel that warmth, and it's closer than you think. So try this today. Pick one thing, just one, that makes your heart feel a little lighter. Let it be your starting point. Now, let's talk about another thing that can happen if we're not careful, ignoring the warning signs of loneliness. This one can be tricky because loneliness doesn't always announce itself. It's not like a loud alarm going off. Sometimes it's a quiet feeling, like when you realize you haven't spoken to anyone all day, or when you turn down an invitation because it feels like too much effort. I met a man named Harold who's 73, and he shared how he didn't even realize he was lonely at first. I was fine on my own, he said. I had my routines, my TV shows, my books. But over time, he noticed he felt heavier, like something was missing. He stopped looking forward to things, and his days started feeling empty. Loneliness can sneak up on us, especially as we age. Maybe the people you used to see regularly move away, or maybe it's harder to get out and about. Harold's story is so common, and it reminds us that loneliness isn't something we always see coming. But here's what Harold learned, and it's something you can do, too. One day, he went to a community center for a coffee morning, even though he almost talked himself out of it. He didn't know anyone there, but he struck up a conversation with someone about a shared love of old movies. That one chat led to a weekly movie night with new friends. Harold told me, "I didn't realize how much I needed that until I had it again." The key is noticing those warning signs early. Maybe it's feeling restless, or maybe it's realizing you haven't laughed in a while. You don't have to wait for loneliness to take hold. Start with something small, like joining a local group or calling someone you haven't spoken to in a bit. I know it can feel daunting, especially if you're out of practice, but you don't have to do it alone. Many communities have senior centers or clubs that are so welcoming, and they're full of people who understand what you're going through. Even a short conversation can remind you that you're not alone, that there's still a place for you in the world. We're weaving a beautiful tapestry together, aren't we? Each choice we've talked about, staying connected, caring for your health, finding purpose, embracing new ways to connect, healing old wounds, rediscovering joy, and listening to your heart is a thread that makes your life richer. I know some days are harder than others, but you've got so much strength and wisdom to draw on. Every step you take, no matter how small, is a step toward a life surrounded by love and meaning. I'm so grateful you're here with me, and there's more to discover as we keep going. Part 5. You know, there's something so grounding about taking a moment to just breathe and reflect on where we are. Maybe you're sitting somewhere cozy right now, thinking about the people and moments that have shaped your life. We've been walking together through this conversation about the 5 things that can happen before seniors find themselves facing their final days alone, and I'm so grateful you're here with me. It's not always easy to look at these patterns, but doing so gives us the power to change our path, to choose a life filled with connection, purpose, and joy. Today we're going to dive a little deeper, looking at how these choices weave together and how even the smallest steps can lead to a brighter, more connected life. Let's think back for a moment about what happens when we start to pull away from the people around us. It's something that can happen so gradually, you barely notice it at first. Maybe you skip a family gathering because you're feeling tired, or you stop going to that weekly card game because it's harder to get out the door. I met a woman named Dorothy, who's 76, and she shared how this happened to her. After her best friend moved to be closer to her grandkids, Dorothy stopped going to their usual knitting group. It didn't feel the same without her, she said. She started spending more time alone, and before she knew it, weeks would pass without a real conversation. That quiet started to feel normal, but deep down, she missed the laughter and stories she used to share. I know how easy it is to let those connections slip, especially when life throws challenges your way. Maybe it's a sore hip that makes walking tough, or maybe you feel like you're not as needed as you once were. But Dorothy found a way to turn things around, and it started with something so simple. She decided to invite one person from her knitting group over for tea. Just one person, no big plans. They spent an afternoon chatting, and that one visit reminded her how much she loved those moments. Soon she was back at the group, even teaching a new member how to knit. Dorothy told me, "I realized I wasn't just knitting scarves, I was knitting my life back together." You don't have to make a grand gesture to reconnect. It can be as simple as sending a text to say, "I was thinking of you," or joining a local event, like a book club or a walking group. I've seen it time and again. One small step can open the door to so much more. You've spent a lifetime building relationships, and those bonds are still there, waiting for you to nurture them. Think about someone you've been meaning to reach out to. What's one little thing you could do today to bridge that gap? It might feel like a big step, but I promise it's worth it. You're not alone in this, and there are people who'd love to hear from you. And as we talk about staying connected, it's so important to think about how we're caring for ourselves too. When we let our health slide, maybe by skipping that doctor's visit or ignoring a nagging worry, it can make it harder to show up for the people and moments we love. I think of George, who's 69. He used to be the life of his bowling league, always cracking jokes and cheering everyone on. But over time, he started feeling sluggish, and he didn't know why. He kept putting off his annual checkup because he didn't want to deal with bad news. I thought I could just push through, he said. But that tiredness made him withdraw. He stopped bowling, stopped meeting his friends for coffee, and his world got smaller. I know how overwhelming it can feel to face health concerns, especially as we age. Some days it's tempting to ignore the signs and hope they go away. But George learned something that changed everything. One day he finally went to the doctor and found out he had low iron levels, something simple to treat with a few changes to his diet and a supplement. Within weeks, he felt like himself again. He was back at the bowling alley, laughing and throwing strikes. George told me, "I didn't realize how much I was missing until I got my energy back." Taking care of your health isn't just about avoiding problems. It's about giving yourself the strength to live the life you want. You don't have to overhaul everything at once. Maybe it's making that one appointment you've been putting off or taking a short walk to get your blood flowing. Even small changes like eating a piece of fruit each day or getting a good night's sleep can make a difference. I've spoken to so many seniors who've found that when they feel better physically, they're more likely to say yes to an outing or pick up the phone. You deserve to feel your best, and those around you want to see you shining. What's one small thing you could do for your health today? It's not about being perfect. It's about giving yourself the care you've earned. We're building something beautiful together, aren't we? Each choice we've explored, reaching out, finding joy, healing old wounds, embracing new ways. To connect is like a note in a song. When you put them together, they create a melody that's uniquely yours. I know some days feel heavier than others, but you got so much wisdom and heart to draw on. Every step you take is a step toward a life filled with love and connection. I'm so glad you're here with me, and there's more to discover as we keep moving forward. There's something so special about those moments when you feel truly alive, isn't there? Maybe it's the warmth of a sunny afternoon, or the satisfaction of finishing a task you've poured your heart into. As we move through our 60s, 70s, and beyond, those moments can feel like little gifts, reminding us that life is still full of possibilities. We've been walking together through this conversation about the 5 things that can happen before seniors find themselves facing their final days alone. And I'm so grateful you're here with me. Each step we've taken has shown us that we have the power to choose a different path, one filled with connection, meaning, and joy. Today, we're going to dive deeper into how we can keep that spark alive, no matter what life brings. One of the things that can dim our days is when we lose that sense of purpose. You know how it feels when the days start to blur together, when you wake up and wonder what's driving you forward. You've spent a lifetime building, creating, and caring for others, and your wisdom is a treasure. But when the routines of work or family life change, it's easy to feel like you're not sure where you fit anymore. I met a man named Frank, who's 72, and he shared how this happened to him. After retiring from his job as a mechanic, he felt like he'd lost his anchor. "I used to fix things, help people," he said. "Without that, I didn't know who I was." Frank stopped going to his local diner, where he used to chat with friends because he felt he had nothing to talk about anymore. I know that feeling of drifting can be heavy, especially when it seems like everyone else has their place in the world. But Frank found a way to rediscover his purpose, and it started with something so simple. One day, he noticed a neighbor struggling to fix a broken gate. Frank offered to help, and that small act reminded him how much he loved solving problems. Soon he was helping other neighbors with small repairs, and those moments gave him a reason to get up each day. Frank told me it wasn't about the work, it was about feeling needed again. That sense of purpose brought him back to the diner, where he now shares stories and laughs with old friends. You don't have to do something big to find your purpose. It can be as simple as sharing your skills, like cooking a meal for a friend, or passing on a story to a younger family member. Maybe it's volunteering at a local charity or joining a group that shares your interests, like a photography club or a choir. I've seen it time and again. When you find something that lights you up, it's like a magnet drawing others to you. Think about what makes you feel alive. Maybe it's gardening, writing, or even organizing old family photos. What's one small thing you could do to share that with someone else? You've got so much to offer, and the world is better for it. And as we talk about finding purpose, there's another thing that can hold us back if we're not careful: staying away from new technology. I know, technology can feel like a puzzle you didn't ask to solve. All those apps and gadgets can seem overwhelming, especially when you've lived most of your life without them. But when we avoid these tools, we might miss out on connections that could fill our days with joy. I think of Linda, who's 68. She used to say she'd never touch a smartphone. "I'm too old for that," she'd laugh. But when her grandkids started sending her pictures and videos, she felt left out. She wanted to see them grow up, but the distance felt so big. One day, Linda's daughter sat her down and showed her how to use a simple video call app. It took a few tries, and Linda admitted she felt frustrated at first. But when she saw her grandson's face on the screen, waving and showing her his new toy, everything changed. "It was like he was right there with me," she said. That one connection led to more. Linda started texting her grandkids, sharing little jokes, and even joined an online book club. Technology became her window to the world, keeping her close to the people she loves. Linda told me, "I'm not a tech wizard, but I'm glad I gave it a chance." You don't have to become an expert to use technology. Start with something small, like learning to send a message or watch a video call. You don't have to do it alone either. Ask a family member, a friend, or even check out a free class at your local library. Many places offer gentle, patient lessons just for seniors. I've spoken to so many people who've found that even a little bit of technology can make a big difference. Maybe it's joining an online group for something you love, like cooking or history or sending a photo to a friend. Those small connections can make your world feel bigger and brighter. What's one tiny step you could take to try something new? It's not about mastering it. It's about opening a door. We're creating something beautiful together, aren't we? Each choice we've explored, reaching out, caring for ourselves, healing, finding joy, is like a brushstroke on a canvas, painting a life that's vibrant and connected. I know some days are harder than others, but you've got so much heart and wisdom to share. Every step you take is a step toward a life surrounded by love. I'm so glad you're here with me, and there's more to discover as we keep moving forward. There's something so comforting about the way life holds both the big moments and the quiet ones, isn't there? Maybe you're thinking about a time when you felt truly connected, maybe a family dinner filled with laughter or a heart-to-heart with a dear friend. Those memories are like anchors, grounding us as we move through our 60s, 70s, and beyond. We've been walking together through this conversation about the 5 things that can happen before seniors find themselves facing their final days alone. And I'm so grateful you're here with me. Each step we've taken has shown us that we have the power to shape our days, to choose a path filled with love, purpose, and connection. Today we're going to dive deeper into how we can keep our hearts open and our lives vibrant, no matter what comes our way. One of the things that can weigh us down is holding on to unresolved conflicts. Over a lifetime, we've all had moments where things didn't go as planned. Maybe a disagreement with a loved one that left a sting, or a misunderstanding that grew into silence. These moments can linger, like a shadow that follows you. I met a man named Walter who's 74, and he shared a story that really touched me. He hadn't spoken to his son for years after a falling out over a family decision. We both said things we didn't mean, Walter told me, but I was too stubborn to reach out. That silence hurt more than he expected, and it made him pull back from other relationships too. He felt like he didn't deserve to be close to others while that rift was still there. I know how heavy those unresolved hurts can feel. Some days, it's easier to push them aside than to face them. But Walter found a way to take a step forward, and it started with something so simple. One evening, he wrote his son an email, just a few lines, saying he missed him and wanted to talk. He didn't expect a reply, but sending those words lifted a weight. A few days later, his son called. They didn't fix everything in one conversation, but they started talking again, sharing small updates, rebuilding what they'd lost. Walter told me it wasn't about being right, it was about being together again. That one act of courage opened his heart to more connections. He even started joining friends for coffee again, feeling lighter than he had in years. You don't have to solve every conflict perfectly. Sometimes it's about taking one small step, maybe writing a note, making a call, or even just forgiving someone in your heart, even if they're no longer here. I've seen it time and again. When we let go of those old wounds, we make space for new joy, for laughter, for love. It's not always easy, and some hurts run deep, but even a tiny gesture can change the way you feel. Think about someone you've been carrying in your heart. What's one small thing you could do to reach out or find peace? You deserve that freedom, and it can bring you closer to the people who matter most. And as we talk about opening our hearts, there's another thing that can slip away if we're not careful. Overlooking the small joys that light up our days. You know those moments, the way a favorite song lifts your spirits, or the smell of rain on a quiet afternoon. These are the little sparks that remind us life is still beautiful. I think of Marie, who's 70. After losing her husband, she stopped doing the things they loved, like walking by the lake or baking pies for neighbors. It felt wrong to enjoy things without him, she said. Over time, she stopped inviting people over, and her days felt gray, like the color had drained out of them. I know how loss or loneliness can make it hard to see the beauty in life. Some days it's tough to find anything worth smiling about, but Marie found a way back, and it started with something so small. One morning, she took a short walk to the lake just to sit and listen to the water. That moment brought back memories of her husband, but instead of sadness, she felt a flicker of peace. She started walking there regularly, and one day she baked a pie and shared it with a neighbor. That led to conversations, then to regular visits. Marie told me, "Those little things reminded me I'm still here, still living." Those small joys didn't just lift her spirits, they brought her back to the world. You don't have to chase big moments to find joy. It's in the simple things, like savoring a warm cup of tea, planting a flower, or calling a friend to share a story. I've spoken to so many seniors who've found that one small joy can be a turning point. Maybe it's pulling out an old hobby like painting or gardening, or just sitting outside for a few minutes, feeling the breeze. What's one thing that makes your heart feel a little lighter? Try it today, even for a moment. Those sparks of joy are like seeds. They grow, and they draw others to you, making it easier to connect, to laugh, to feel alive. You deserve those moments, and they're waiting for you. We're weaving a beautiful story together, aren't we? Each choice we've explored, reaching out, caring for ourselves, finding purpose, healing, rediscovering joy, is a thread in a tapestry that's uniquely yours. I know some days feel heavier than others, but you've got so much strength and wisdom to share. Every step you take is a step toward a life filled with love and connection. I'm so glad you're here with me, and there's more to discover as we keep moving forward. You know, there's something so beautiful about the way life unfolds, isn't there? Each day brings a chance to laugh, to share, to feel the warmth of connection. We've been walking together through this conversation about the 5 things that can happen before seniors find themselves facing their final days alone, and I'm so grateful you've been here with me. This journey has been about more than just recognizing the patterns that can lead to isolation. It's been about discovering the power you have to create a life filled with love, purpose, and joy. Today, as we bring this story to a close, let's reflect on what we've learned and carry forward the hope that lights our way. Because you, with all your wisdom and heart, deserve a life surrounded by the people and moments that matter most. Over the past few days, we've talked about how easy it is to slip into habits that pull us away from others. Sometimes it's stepping back from friends or family, like Dorothy did when her knitting group felt empty without her best friend. But she showed us that one small step, like inviting someone for tea, can weave those connections back together. Then there's the way we care for ourselves, like George, who found his energy again after a simple doctor's visit, bringing him back to his bowling league with a smile. These choices matter, don't they? They're not just about staying healthy or staying in touch. They're about giving yourself the strength to live fully, to show up for the people who light up your world. We've also explored what happens when we lose that sense of purpose, like Frank, who felt adrift after retirement. But when he started fixing things for his neighbors, he found a reason to get up each morning, a spark that drew others to him. And technology, oh, I know it can feel daunting, but Linda showed us how a simple video call can bridge miles, bringing grandkids' laughter right into your home. These moments remind us that purpose and connection are always within reach, no matter how far away they might seem. You've got so much to share, and the world is waiting for your warmth. Then there's the weight of unresolved conflicts, like Walter carrying the silence between him and his son. His courage to write that email opened a door to healing, showing us that even a small gesture can lift a burden and make room for love. And those small joys, Marie taught us how a walk by the lake or a homemade pie can bring color back to our days, inviting others to share in that light. Finally, we talked. about loneliness, how it can creep in quietly, as it did for Harold. But his decision to show up at a coffee morning led to new friends and movie nights, proving that it's never too late to find your place. Each of these stories is a reminder that you're not alone in this. Life can feel heavy sometimes, maybe. It's a sore knee, a quiet house, or a memory that stings. But every single one of us has the power to take a step, no matter how small. Maybe it's calling a friend you've been thinking about, or taking a moment to savor a favorite song. Maybe it's signing up for a library class to learn something new, or writing a note to someone you've missed. These choices are like threads in a tapestry, weaving a life that's rich with meaning and connection. And you, with all your experiences, are the artist, creating something beautiful with every step you take. I know it's not always easy. Some days it feels like the world is moving too fast, or the effort seems too big. But you've lived through so much. Decades of change, love, and lessons. And that strength is still inside you. You're not starting from scratch. You're building on a lifetime of wisdom, and every choice you make is a chance to write a new chapter. I've seen it in the stories we've shared, in the seniors who've found their way back to joy and connection, and I see it in you right now as you're listening, thinking about what matters most. You're not alone, and the best chapters are still ahead of you. So let's make a promise to ourselves today. Let's choose one small thing, a call, a walk, a moment of joy, and let it be the start of something new. Because when you do, you're not just changing your day, you're changing your life. And you're inviting others to be part of it, to share in the laughter, the stories, the love. That's what this channel's all about, being here for each other, lifting each other up and celebrating the beauty of every stage of life. If this has touched your heart, I'd love for you to share it with someone who might need to hear it too. Click that like button, share this video, and subscribe to join our community. We're in this together, and I can't wait to keep sharing these moments with you. As we close, I want you to know how much you mean to me, to this community, to the people in your life. Your presence, your wisdom, your heart, they make the world brighter. So here's to you, to the connections you'll nurture, the joys you'll rediscover, and the life you'll keep building. You've got this, and I'm cheering you on every step of the way. Here's to living your best life at any age.